payment of money to the church, they might free themselves from sin and release the souls of their deceased friends who were confined in the tormenting flames. By such means Rome filled her coffers and sustained the magnificence, luxury, and vice of the pretended representatives of him who had not where to lay his head. And the old Roman Empire flourished under the guise of the Vatican, the papacy, the Catholic Church. In the 13th century was established that most terrible of all the engines of the papacy, the Inquisition. The Prince of Darkness worked through the leaders of the papal hierarchy. In their secret councils, Satan and his angels controlled the minds of evil men who invented tortures too horrible to appear to human eyes. Babylon the Great was drunken with the blood of the saints. The mangled forms of millions of martyrs cried to God for vengeance upon that apostate power. This is word to word from history, folks. Popery became the world's despot. Kings and emperors bowed to the decrees of the Roman pontiff. The destinies of men, both for time and for eternity, seemed under his control. For hundreds of years, the doctrines of Rome had been extensively and implicitly received, its rites reverently performed, and its festivals observed. Its clergy were honored and liberally sustained, but the noon of the papacy was the midnight of the world. That was written by J.A. Wiley in the History of Protestantism. Now, Protestantism is not lily-white either. I use that term lily-white because throughout history it's been used to describe good, when in fact, in many instances, there's nothing good about it whatsoever. Protestantism, folks, began in the Reformation. When Martin Luther rebelled against the Pope. But did you know that Martin Luther used as his personal seal the rose and the cross, revealing that he himself was an initiate of the mystery school, the ancient religion of Babylon. You see, I'm not attacking anyone, and I'm not putting anyone on a pedestal. I'm not tearing down the Vatican in order to build up the Protestant Church, for they are equally guilty. Protestantism has fractured the teachings of Christ into thousands of sects and cults and little groups, all of them professing to know the truth. None of them really do. The Holy Scriptures were almost unknown, not only to the people, but to the priests. God's law, the standard of righteousness in those days, having been removed, papist leaders exercised power without limit and practiced vice without restraint. Fraud, avarice, and profligacy prevailed. Men shrank from no crime by which they could gain wealth or position. The palaces of popes and prelates were scenes of the vilest debauchery. Some of the reigning pontiffs were guilty of crimes so revolting that secular rulers endeavored to depose these dignitaries of the church as monsters too vile to be tolerated. For centuries, Europe made no progress in learning, arts, or civilization. A moral and intellectual paralysis had fallen upon the world. The noon of the papacy, according to history, was the midnight of the world. Foremost among those who were called to lead the church from the darkness of popery into the light of a purer faith stood Martin Luther. And this is what people believe, but Martin Luther himself was an initiate of the mystery schools, a follower of the faith of Mystery Babylon, as was the Pope and the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. You see, but they were vying for rulership of the world, and up until